Welcome to the Queer Love Podcast, the silly and serious shenanigans of two queer relationship coaches. I am your host, Elizabeth Cunningham.
And I'm your host, Lee Greepsch.
On this podcast, we talk about how to live your best queer life with fulfilling, healthy relationships and anything else that makes your little queer heart happy. Because living your life outside of the heteronormative scripts is totally possible for you.
Each episode, we explore all things queer love from our professional perspective as relationship coaches, our own personal experiences, and as partners.
If you love our show, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter at Queer Love Relationships. You can also check out our website, www.queerloverelationships.com.
Thanks for following us and enjoy this episode.
Welcome to the Queer Love Podcast.
Woo!
Oh, man.
Yeah.
How are you feeling today, dear listener? Hey, Charlie. Thank you. Charlie is feeling rambunctious.
She did just wake up from her nap, so.
But how are you feeling? Check in with you, dear listener. How are you feeling today? How's your heart? How's your body feel? Just noticing. Noticing how you're doing.
Starting off with all the questions.
We're about to ask you all the questions. What are we talking about today? Question 1.
No. I thought you were going to ask me my favorite color.
What is your favorite color?
It's a secret. But today...
It's green.
No.
It's not green? Your favorite color is not green? I could have sworn that your favorite color was green. It's green! Just stop that. You cut that out. Oh my goodness. Like, I know what your favorite color is. Come on.
Today, we're talking about creating secure bonds in relationships. What were we talking about? Feeling secure in relationships. In layman's terms, feeling secure in your relationships.
Feeling secure in relationships.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're talking about. Let's do it.
What does that even mean, to feel secure in a relationship? What does that even mean?
I don't know. I mean, people always ask for it, so.
We're just going to wing it. We're going to figure it out as we go along.
Yeah, I don't know what they're talking about. I'm like, yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's make that happen for you, friend. What does it mean for you?
That everything is perfect and nothing ever goes wrong.
Okay, well, we can start off by saying that's not feeling secure, actually. That will lead you to
that was
feeling
a joke.
insecure
That was a joke.
really quickly.
That will lead you to feeling insecure very quickly, is trying to have everything be perfect in your relationship with humans who are very imperfect creatures.
Not that. Okay.
Nope, not that.
Next guess.
Next guess. Feeling secure in your relationships means that you have set up a security system in your house and you are safe and protected from outside intruders.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how this is going to be a productive conversation at this stage.
Oh my gosh, so funny.
That's also not what it means. But
well, what we were talking about before when we were talking about this subject specifically was around secure attachment. Secure attachment in relationships.
Attachment is another buzz.
It's another buzzword.
Buzz idea about the relationship world.
Buzzword. And you were talking about you were talking about oh my god, now I'm thinking of the other EFT. Not the EFT.
Well, I was talking about is emotionally focused therapy.
Emotionally focused therapy. There you go.
I mean, people look at like attachment styles, right? Like that's all the craze and the buzz these days of like, oh, I'm anxious attachment, or I'm avoidant, or I want to be secure, and which is great to understand all those things. But yeah, I mean looking at like attachment styles, like that's coming from your original bonds. So you like
in childhood,
what were those attachment figures in your life as a little one, and what was going on, and then obviously how that then translates to now how you go about the world. But people bring this up, right, of like, I want to feel secure in my relationship because I feel anxious, those kinds of challenges.
Yeah.
And then so thinking about it in terms of like adult relationships.
Yeah. So when we're talking about feeling secure in your relationship, are you talking about attachment styles, or are you talking about just feeling secure in the relationship?
Yes.
Both.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's just the basic, like the, not basics, but like foundational level of human needs in bonds, like close bonds, that if you're wanting like that, like a secure partnership, like there are those like, hey, this is what, it's pretty foundational for that just on a human level. And then, there might be kind of like we were talking about last episode, where there might be some individual pieces to like what has you feel more secure or less secure in
yeah
the dynamic.
Everyone's gonna be different,
but I mean, I think it, and that's why I'm like, a little bit of a attachment kind of understanding of just those like human needs, and then also like what has you to feel secure, because that does change, ebb and flow over time in different contexts of life too. So that's why I'm like, yes, both.
Totally. And I also, I was joking earlier about what secure doesn't mean, but I also think that it's relevant to talk about what secure doesn't mean, because one of the ways that I see it played out in a can be unhealthy, but also just like not what secure is the trying to control. Trying to control how you are, trying to control how the relationship goes. And I don't mean trying to control the other person, like being controlling and like manipulative in like an abusive way, but I mean controlling as in the shoulds, like my partner should be like this. If we were going to have a secure relationship, then they would do this, or it would look like this. So that's what I mean by control, is having a very specific idea of what security looks like, and then trying to make your relationship or relationships match that picture perfectly, right? So I think security is more of a feeling. It is a way of being. It is a felt sense. It is something to come from or operate from, but there's not necessarily a way that like a secure relationship looks. Like maybe there's characteristics of a secure relationship that are like pretty reliable, right? Like it's like if you have a secure relationship, then it might have these, specific characteristics, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It's not like creating those characteristics as like a, checklist that it's like, okay, well, it has to have this, right? Like that would fall more into the control aspect, right?
Yeah, it's just like the foundational pieces,
Yeah.
And then building from there.
I think the other pitfall that I see with people trying to have secure relationships is the misunderstanding of what emotional regulation is. Like some people are like, well, if you have a secure relationship, then you're emotionally regulated. And if you're ever emotionally dysregulated, then that means you don't have a secure relationship, and that's not true. First of all, emotional regulation does not mean that you are always emotionally regulated, and that's a different topic. And also, it is totally normal as a human being living in this world that is also an imperfect world and has stressors. It is also normal for you to become dysregulated. And relationships can be dysregulating. You know, even in healthy relationships, they can be dysregulating at different times.
Right.
And so that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have a secure relationship either.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, emotional dysregulation can actually like really show you if there is a secure attachment. I'm like, actually, that's pretty good to show you, because I mean, it kind of goes along what you were joking about earlier, where you're like, oh, everything's perfect and everything's hunky dory, right? Whereas, yeah, it's in those moments of distress, dysregulation, challenge, conflict, whatever, that is creating dysregulation. What happens in that point in time in the relationship, because that can definitely, because if taking the classic example of like anxious attachment or avoidant attachment, right? Like anxious, where it's like, oh, the thing is like, oh, you want to like move towards a person, like, hey, I need like that, like you're more of like please come here,
the chaser,
the chaser or whatever. And then it's the avoidant person is like, peace out,
quote unquote, the runner.
Yeah, like it's, like the chaser and runner is like very like, oh, such a simplified review of that. And so it's
very
like,
trendy and not accurate way to say it.
I mean, there's so many things. Oh man, we should just like talk about that at some point too. Of like so many things with attachment style stuff is like people just like demonize different things, or like
there's a lot of conversation around attachment that is not useful or accurate.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing with so much can be said about that. But you take that like example, right, of like, oh yes, you have the quote unquote chaser and the quote unquote runner, but say someone's more in that like anxious space because of what's going on for them, and they're like needing that bit of whatever reassurance or just like support. And so it's like in a more secure kind of bond or moment, right? And again, I think too, the thing is with secure bonds, it's not like every time they're able to
there's not an isness to it.
Like it's not like every time. I mean, I think it also comes down to like, this is where you can kind of get into the nitty gritty of these different like studies and like therapies and stuff, like the emotional focus therapy, like there's then these components where it's like, but if it's this kind of thing, then look at it in this way. Anyway, it doesn't have to be perfect every single time.
Point being,
but it's like, okay, what happens in those moments? Like, is someone offering you, like, are they actually like being there? Are they like responding in a way that is not like, it's not to feed the anxiety, but it's also like to help in that maybe co-regulatory space, right? And they're not like dipping out or something of that nature, or vice versa too. Like if someone's like pulling and you're like, hey man, like, it's all good, kind of situation. So it's, it's really showing, like seeing how are you showing up in those moments when dysregulation is present,
right?
Because again, dysregulation is present, and so can secure attachments also be present. Or feeling secure, like you can feel dysregulated and also feel secure at the same time,
right?
They're not like can't happen at the same time. So,
and you can also feel anxious in your relationship and secure at the same time too. So and I think that's, I mean, I was just giving a more specific example, but dysregulated, for sure.
Whatever kind of state that is for you.
And again, to like bring it back to like it's not about perfection either. It's not like if you recently had a conflict with your partner and they weren't able to co-regulate with you, that doesn't necessarily mean that you now have an insecure relationship, right? Like there could be a lot of different factors, like especially if there's someone who is like reliable for that co-regulation, right? Then it's like, like just because they weren't available at that time does not mean that you're now in like an insecure relationship, right? So anything else inside of like this is not what secure relationships is? I think it's important to say like the not that.
No, I know. I'm trying to think of like, I'm just, I think it's kind of covered like the common things that I hear from people like, oh, if it's like, I want a secure relationship, and it's like, well, what is that? It's, it's like, well, I don't want to feel anxious anymore, or they'll stop doing this thing or whatever it is. And because it's leading down to that path of like, perfection, or just comfortable all the time, which, again, even if it's not in the relationship, like life throws things at you. And so, like, it doesn't even need to be in the context of this relationship, like a conflict in the relationship that is dysregulating you. But it's like, you had a terrible day at work, or something happened in your family, and like, your partner's like, how are they showing up for you in that experience, can also just like display to you like, oh yeah, I feel secure, or not. But I think it's just not, it doesn't equal perfection.
Yeah. And I also think that, again, going along the lines with that, it's not just because you don't feel secure all the time doesn't mean it's a secure relationship, or doesn't mean that it's not a secure relationship. Same thing too with if it was a secure relationship and now something has happened to where it doesn't feel like a secure relationship, it doesn't mean that it can't go back to, or it can't be a secure relationship again, right? Like, it doesn't mean that you can't get it back to that space either. So it can be a fluid thing that happens as well.
Yeah, I think that's also just a key thing for attachment styles or whatever. People are like, I'm anxious or whatever, but it's like you are different in every like dynamic, right? Like, where one, you're a little bit more in that anxious space, and then this other dynamic, you're a little bit more in the avoidance space, or this other dynamic, you're like, wow, this is secure, actually, this is fantastic. So it's like, it's not like you are just this one thing,
you're not a fixed thing
and then so that also is going along the lines of like with relationships, where it's like, oh yeah, like there was a lot of security and now there's not, because of whatever has happened. And so then it's again, building back to security. What does that look like now in the context of what has happened, which, then goes back to, okay, what happened to lead to this, which, usually addressing conflict, past pain, past hurts, all those things that then you build security through the healing of those, processing through kind of situation. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, what is, $1 million question, what is a secure relationship?
You asking me?
Yes, I am.
Oh. I'm like, well, I feel like I could go to like,
I mean, there's so many different ways to answer that question.
Yeah, I'm like, I feel like going to the like foundational pieces, like we were talking about, which, I mean, again, there's all kinds of different like studies and research that has shown this in different dynamics. Like the original like attachment styles, like that's coming back from like what's his name, John Bowlby's work from, was like the 40s or 50s or something. But that was all based off of like infant and mom dynamics, right? And so it's like that's based off of a lot of that. And honestly, I was like, it's something like, for that kind of dynamic to feel like to be an actual secure attachment based off of like what they're looking at criteria wise. Yeah, it was like the mom had to show up like, I think it's like 30% of the time in a secure way for it to be considered secure. And it's, which also has you, but it also has you like when you're like, shoot, man, like, coming, like a lot of us did not come in, into the adult world being like, I had secure attachments growing up. And so you're like, dude, not even 30% of the time. But it's kind of like wild, but it was something of that nature. But, so that was like those studies, but then there's also been these other studies, later down the line, because that was like the first big thing about this. Like people, that was before like they allowed you to like go to the hospital with your kid because they were like, oh, the kid's fine. You know, kind of that generation where it's like, just leave them alone. They don't need you. Like it's, you know, and thinking about all those kinds of things about co-regulation where you're able to, you know, you're dysregulated, but you have that safe other to regulate with.
Right.
Which is what a child needs because you can't regulate yourself until like age, like it's like 7 to 9 or something. So there's like so many things in that. But, you know, coming back to the adult relationships, and feeling secure, you know, some of the like main pillars is, I mean, I think it's how they put it in, it's like the accessibility. So accessibility meaning like is someone there for you, right? Like when you actually need someone there, are they there? And again, that's going back to, it doesn't have to be perfect every time, but it's like, oh yeah, there's like these critical things. Are they there? Are they accessible? Like, and not only are they there, are they accessible to you, right? Where you can like reach out and you know, like they will catch you in that way. It's also the responsiveness, and that goes into like attunement. So, I mean, people talk about attunement, or like, what's another word for attunement that people would know?
Connected.
Like, yeah, like connect, like you're picking up on, like attunement really is like, I think it stems from curiosity, right? You know, and
connected, curious, empathetic.
Yeah, so it's like your responsiveness to,
aware.
Yeah, so like say you know your partner's going through something that's hard at work, for instance, right? Like, you know, they're going through that, and it's like maybe they haven't said anything necessarily at that point in time, but like you're attuning to that. Like maybe you knew they had like a hard meeting that was supposed to happen that day or whatever. Like you showing that attunement is like maybe beforehand being like, hey, like, you know, how are you feeling? Blah, 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 like what do you need? And then like after just like checking in around those things. And so it's like that, like kind of that curiosity and understanding of their patterns perhaps around like, oh, well, when they talk to their mom, they tend to get really anxious. So if they're talking to their mom, I want to check in with them. Or this thing happened, I wonder how that actually is affecting them. And, you know, and you can kind of check in that way. But that's like the attunement to it, right? And the attunement then connects to like empathy, like you were talking about, which fosters that connection. Of like, they will respond to me, right? And then the other one is like, it's like engagement, right? Well, like coming back to like what we were talking about last time with like willingness, like are they willing to engage with me? Like, hey, we're having a tough thing. Are they willing to put things aside? Are they willing to make more time for me, for this relationship? You know, even though it's tough, but are they willing to engage with me to sort this out? Because that's going to then create a lot more of that safety and security, even though you're still feeling discombobulated in your emotions. But it's like, this person is going, hey, yeah, I'm going to not do that thing because I want to be here with you. I'm going to put my phone away because I want to engage with you, or like set aside this time specifically for you so that we can like talk through this. Yeah. Because a lot of, you know, and then in all of these things, you are really focused on the emotions, right? Which is, you know, coming back to how to, you know, wanting to feel secure. It's like, well, you need to address those emotions that are present that are causing those like insecurities or like dysregulation, right? And so it's like being able to be with the actual emotions and not being stuck on like, you know, you did this thing. Like you're not talking about like the actual emotions, like, hey, this is what's actually going on for me. Like, these are the feelings, these are the emotions. And so like being able to do like that is like the baseline through those different actions of like the accessibility, the responsiveness and engagement is like you're talking through, processing through those emotions that are underlying all of that. And in that process, then you are actually being able to foster that safety and that security, even when there has been like a rupture of some sort or like a challenge, friction in the dynamic. And so being able to do all of that, right? And as you know, sometimes it's a lot easier, you know, if it's like a smaller, quote unquote, smaller situation versus like maybe something that just like absolutely feels like it's a torpedo to your relationship. it's like, yeah, the thing of being able to engage with that situation is going to be a lot harder to do because of, the big feels about it and whatnot, especially if it's been like a long-term conflict too. So
Yeah.
there's the scientific way of me responding to what is a secure relationship.
I love it. I loved everything about it.
Yeah.
Thank you for breaking that down.
Yes. That's all from Emotionally Focused Therapy, and it's Sue Johnson is her name, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, she actually passed away a couple of years ago. But she was like a sassy British psychologist. She's great on like podcasts. If you go listen to like podcasts with her and stuff, she was really great. But yeah, that's all her work because she was like a student of Bowlby's and like studied after him and tried to figure out, because she was a couples therapist and was like trying to sort out like all these things that she had learned about couples therapy were not working, because it's like this, we're still not addressing what's going on.
Right.
And and these issues like that people are attributing to these other things, it's not actually what's going on. And so she started developing this approach to being like, oh, it's the adult bonds and repairing through that in the ways that, that's just how humans work, kind of thing. Like we're social creatures in that way. And so tending to the actual repair of the bonds and the emotions and what has people feel safe through that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's definitely, I mean, I really love the way that you, spelled it out. And then, yeah, when you actually are dealing with the as lived,
yeah, it gets a lot messier.
It gets a lot messier because, relationships are not black and white. Conflicts are not always black and white. Emotions are certainly not black and white, for sure.
Yeah, that's all, it is. It's going to get complicated because you are dealing with other things in the room that is not necessarily around that. Like, even if you take the instance of like the responsiveness, like of attunement, right? It's like, yeah, it's a lot easier to attune when you are maybe in a more regulated state, or you don't have like your own triggers about a situation, right, going on, because like then you're getting blocked because you're so stuck in that like you're not picking up on the other, and then that's almost worsening the situation. But it's not anyone's fault, but it's more of like, yeah, so you're not thinking like, oh, well, if I just attune, it's like, okay, yeah, I mean, attunement's great, but there are those other pieces that are present that create those little hurdles to doing so, which is why it's like, to be with the emotions, to process through, and couples therapy. That's how this was developed, is because of these kinds of things where they're talking about it in those sessions, right?
It's also why it's really important when you are unpacking things that happen to be able to look at it in a layered way. Like, these were all the things that were going on at that time, right? Like, yes, yes, you would have preferred if I would have responded in a different way, or if I would have been more attuned to you in this specific way. However, what was going on, and in a perfect world, I would have done that. However, what was going on for me was that I was in a freeze response, and this was what got triggered for me. And so it didn't even occur to me to respond in that way because I was dealing with my own stuff. And that doesn't make anyone, again, it's nobody's fault. It's not right, it's not wrong. But when we can talk about it in like these were the layers of the situation, and we can talk about it in a way that isn't like making someone right or making someone wrong, right? Like, there wasn't a victim, there wasn't a villain in the situation. It was just, this is what happened. And what do we need to do? What tools do we need? What sort of emotional regulation do we need? Or what sort of like processing individually do we need to do so that when something like this happens in the future, that we can come together instead of having this like disparate reaction to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think and I'm thinking about stuff with like clients and this kinds of dynamics where they're wanting, more security and all that. But, especially in the like long-term relationships where maybe like things have happened, like it's just like these, I see them like as like the little, just like the booms that have happened across time with them. And maybe like they've tried addressing it or like, they bring it up, but then it happens again, those kinds of situations where it kind of accumulates, right? And so it's like there's more to navigate in addressing that. And it's also, that, like you were saying, like, is there like individual work to need addressing too? Because, it could be like, oh yeah, you talk about like, this is what happened. And your partner's like, oh my God, for sure, I'll do that differently next time. And, maybe it's like the ability to navigate your own dysregulation, right? And like the triggers that come up, like, are they equipping themselves? Are you equipping yourself to do that, in those moments? Because it's really challenging, right? But it's like, is that happening? And I think that's, it gets really hard. I think a lot of like, I'm thinking of like a handful of clients that have gotten to those points where they're the person that's like doing all the personal growth work, right? Yeah. And then their partner is like, maybe they're doing some, but it's not like a lot, or it's just like, there's just different, and it's
it's not aligning with the work that you're doing,
right? And I think that's why it's oftentimes like people have that fear of like, oh, you're gonna start doing therapy or personal development work, and then you're gonna like no longer be with me anymore because,
and that's a real
which
is totally a thing, which
yeah.
is my response to that. But I've also worked in this realm for over a decade now. But my response to that is then like, well, then maybe you should also do personal development work.
Right. I mean, it's kind of that thing, like what you were saying with like, yeah, there's not, it's not like the you're right, you're wrong, or the victim and the villain or whatever it is. But it's like, if you're continuing to put yourself in a situation in which, it's kind of dangerous in the way of like, you're expecting a lot from a, like, I'm like trying to think of like what would be the word, like lesser developed, I guess. And I'm like not seeing that in like a,
well, it's like I had someone
hierarchical way.
Yeah, I had someone say this, give this analogy, and I really like it, which is like one person is on chapter 5 and the other person is on chapter 20.
Right.
Right. So it's not like the person on chapter 5 is like worse than, or like,
right,
not doing as well or something like that. It's just
at that stage.
It's just that you're at that stage, and the other person is on chapter 20 and they know a lot more than you, and which doesn't make them better than you, but it does mean that they know more and that they have more experience and practice and they have more tools under their tool belt than you do.
Right. I mean, it's I think about it when it's like, you have a it's like, okay, let's say you're a philosophy student and you're year 1 and you're like the other person's year 5, right, or like a graduate master's level,
yeah,
and it's like, and if the master's level person is expecting that year 1 student to like engage in these conversations in the same, like to the same degree, to the same understanding, to the, like all that, then you're gonna
with the same vocabulary,
you're gonna set yourself up for a lot of frustration and being like, why aren't you like at my level, in that way of being able, I can't engage with you in the ways that I want. Like this actually feels like not helpful for either of us, because you don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what you like. I'm getting frustrated because you're like, you seem so far behind or whatever. But it's it's recognize like what are those like expectations you're putting upon them.
Yeah.
If they haven't even got that.
and I think that that's also a part of having a secure relationship is managing your expectations. And we talked about we didn't talk about managing your expectations last episode, but we did talk about radical acceptance last episode. And so like that radical acceptance of like, this is my partner, this is where they're at right now. And also, if you are in a relationship with someone where they don't want to do personal development work, then it's accepting that about them, not having different expectations of that with them. And also, if that type of relationship doesn't work for you, then you might have some hard questions to ask yourself, right? But again, it's like you're definitely going to make the relationship not secure if you don't accept that about them and have different expectations of them when that's not the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, because you can even, like, thinking about, you know, what we were talking about with, like, you know, the attunement, responsiveness, engagement, all that, you know, that it's like a little a dial, right, where you can turn it different degrees based on these relationships that you're in. Like, you know, what is a secure friendship is not necessarily a secure partnership, or you know, like that kind of, or a secure relationship with a family member. So it's thinking, like, what you're just, like, going along that same line of, like, the radical acceptance. Like, if this is where it's at in terms of what the other can offer, or, you know, what you feel secure in being able to engage in with them, like, if that works for you, fantastic, great, there you go. Radical acceptance.
Radical acceptance, yeah, exactly.
But if it's like, but you find yourself being like, oh, that doesn't actually work for me in this dynamic in the way that I want, then, you know, yeah, then that leads into, okay, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for us?
Yeah, what does that mean going forward? Yeah, what now? What next? And you can still have radical acceptance about someone or something or a situation and still choose to shift the relationship or end a relationship as well. Radical acceptance does not mean resignation about something, does not mean being resigned to something, because that leads to resentment, which then also leads to not having a secure relationship with that person.
Yeah. And I think that also can maybe lead to, like, confusion sometimes too. If, like, say you're in a friendship and, you know, you feel secure in this friendship, and then you're like, well, I don't feel secure in my partnership or one of my partnerships, right? And it's like, well, it's probably different around, you know, what you are wanting from your friend versus wanting from a partner. And so then, you know, not necessarily being like, oh, this is what it would be like, you know, kind of thing. It's like, well, what else are you wanting? And so I think it's just, not like blanketing that across the board too. Yeah, definitely being aware of the context. Well, what would you say about when one person feels that the relationship is secure, but the other person does not? Drama. I think that's actually really common. Which is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring it up. Like, number one, that's super common. I mean, especially just going off of what we just talked about, where, like, maybe you're, like, you know, the year 5 student and the other's the year 1 student, you know, it's like what they're wanting, or, like, they're like, wow, this person totally provides it for me. And they're like, dude, they show up all the time. Like, they listen, they're attuned to me. This is fantastic, you know? And so, like, for them, it's like, this feels so secure. This is great. And then the other person's like, dude, what? Like, you don't show up, or you don't engage, or you're not even asking me about anything, you know? Like, and I'm thinking about, like, you know, again, clients that come in, they're like, I want a secure relationship. I do all these things, and this is all I want from my, like, honestly, it's so funny. A lot of the common things are just like, I just want them to be curious about me. Like, I want the attunement, right? Like, picking up on these different things and I feel like we should also mention that attunement is not, because I hear this, I feel like people get confused around, like, attunement being like, oh, they just know what I need. Like, you know, they just know. And it's like, no, that's not what attunement is, actually. But, you know, that's what people think. We're like, I'm attuning to you. Like, I'm not expected to, like, read your mind or whatever. And it's like, that's not attunement. You know, and if someone is putting that expectation on you, saying it's attunement, well, that's a different story. But, you know, attunement it's like that curiosity, or just, like, the checking in and, like, being like, oh yeah, I know this about them. Like, I'm putting together the pieces, right? And just, like, reading into, like, oh, I see their body language, or I hear the tone of their voice, what's going on, right? And so you're able to, you know, connect in that way and pick up on things even without them telling you. Like, it's totally normal. But just to, like, name that. So, I mean, I think, yeah, a lot of that times it can lead to a lot of frustration in those dynamics where someone feels secure.
Right.
And the other doesn't, because maybe the one that doesn't feel secure is like, I'm going crazy. Right? Because they're like, they're perfectly fine with this. How are they perfectly fine with this?
Right.
Like, why can't they just ask me about how my day is? Why can't they ask me about this thing that I told them about and they're not asking me anything about it, right? Like, I told them that this was going to happen, you know, with my sister. I told them that this was going to happen at work and nothing comes, you know, or like I was feeling this way and they never check in, you know, or anything of that nature. And it's like those kinds of things that it's just like, dude, they can't even give me that. And so it's like, it leads to a lot of that frustration and not like feeling appreciated in that way too, or like just feeling seen, really.
Yeah, and it's also if you are the person who is not being as attuned or like not checking in or anything like that, again, this is not like a you're bad, you're doing something wrong or anything like that, because I know that I literally just had a conversation recently with someone in my life where they were like, they didn't say you're not attuned, but we had but we had a very similar conversation where they were like, do you even care about like what's going on with me? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, of course I care what's going on with you. But the way that I was expressing that care and the way that they were wanting that care to be expressed were two different things. Mm-hmm. And so I thought that I was expressing like my care and like, you know, and whenever I think about them, I'm always like, I wonder how they're doing or what they're up to or da da da. But my experience of them was that they just didn't share a lot. Like I was just like, oh, well, I guess that they don't want to share. You know, they don't want to tell me. And this was the conversation that we had. I was like, oh, this is my experience. My experience is that you give me very short answers. So I just assume that you don't want to talk about it or you don't want to tell me. And so I don't pry. And they were like, well, I want you to ask more questions. I don't give you more because I think that you don't want to hear it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, well, I'm so glad we're having this conversation because I want to know everything. I was like, I want to know probably more about your life than you're willing to tell me. Like,
yeah.
Right. And so also like when these things are happening, again, getting curious, like, not immediately being like, oh, this person's not attuned to me or like they don't care or things like that. Like getting curious about like, okay, what's the mismatch here? What's the breakdown? And then having these conversations about like, hey, like I noticed this, or like, you know, it makes me feel, what did they say? They were like, yeah, well, I think they actually legitimately said like, yeah, I just think that you don't care. And I was like, oh my God, tell me more about why you think I don't care, because I so care.
Yeah.
What am I doing to make you feel that way? Please tell me.
Yeah. I mean, and that comes down to like more of also you know, like we were saying earlier with like attunement really connecting to curiosity, right? And so like people have different relationships to, you know, especially like someone showing curiosity about them. Right. Because like maybe in those instances where it's like, you know, maybe they weren't used to like having people be curious about them or like being able to take up space in that way. Right. And so like, you know, one question is like, can I say more, you know? And so it's like, but that's the thing. It's like the attunement of like, okay, like if you know this about a partner, for instance, that like, you know, maybe their upbringing where you're like, oh yeah, that's probably going to make more sense for me to like, you know, really like sit with them and be like, hey, let's sit down at the table. Like, tell me about your day. What about this thing? How's that person at work doing? You know, like really trying to get more pieces of their world so that you can start to put them all together in that way. So yeah. It's like always, I mean, it's different. And I think, I mean, attunement also, I feel like there's so much about attunement.
We can do a whole episode about attunement.
There is.
We should, you know what we should do is we should listen to these last 2 episodes that we did and take notes, because I feel like we could make like a whole series about these past 2 episodes.
Yeah. I mean, I think attunement also, you know, comes down, like there's so many different, even like expectations around how attuned people are, like, you know, based off of gender roles. And it comes back into like also like neurodivergence or neurotypical folks and stuff, and like how you kind of process things differently too will also play into attunement. So
my neurodivergence absolutely gets in the way of I care so much, and my neurodivergence is like, yeah, you care, but you're not gonna remember any of this shit. So okay,
yeah,
good luck.
That, or it's like, you know, especially like I know for folks like, you know, on the spectrum and stuff, like where you're gonna process it, you know, differently, and like it just like the way that you show that like interest or like you're attuning, but in a different way than, you know, a neurotypical person would anticipate. And so it's going to feel like you're not attuning, right? Yeah. Where you're like, whoa, wait, what? Like, you know, in your world, it's like, 100%. So,
no, it is. It's totally, and it's different in different relationships, you know, because like me and Alec, for example,
are like the same person.
I don't know if we're the same person.
In like these kinds of areas.
In these ways.
Oh.
In these ways.
Not like, oh yeah, it's just the same person. No, like in terms of like attunement, emotions, and all that. You guys are the same person.
But and in that respect, we feel so seen by each other. Like we feel so seen. We feel very attuned to each other. Like we can have, you know, we used to do a lot more like co-working. We can sit in the same room for the whole day and not speak to each other and just like except for to have lunch like in the middle of the day. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, we're like, oh my God, that was the best time. Like, we didn't even, the only time that we talked was over lunch. Yeah. And like, but we're like, oh, that was the best day. That was the best time together. It was so great. Because like that's comforting for both of us. It's just like, be around each other, you know, and
it's so funny for me because like
and that is not the same with Lee.
No, so but it's funny because like
that's come up in our therapy before.
I'll have conversations with her about, you know, whatever kind of emotional thing or whatever, and like I can have similar conversations with him, and like I'm doing it each one-on-one. They're not in the same room as each other, right? And I'm just like, to me that's how what like, and I'm like, well, that checks out, that makes sense to the two of you because you are the same person in that way. Or I'm like, no, that is what, okay, you know. And so it's really, but it's, again, you have to like understand these things because there's, you know, like for me, like there's relationships for me where I'm like, they're very similar in like how I like attune and like them, like I'm just like, I don't even have to say, like I was talking to someone the other day and I was like, one of my friends, and she said something that I was like, dude, you brought that up. That was like from years ago, that like, you know, recognizing that for me of like, oh, that probably connected to that for you, huh? And I was like, oh my God, it did. That's wild that you remember. But it's like we have those where I'm like, wow, they just check in these ways that feel really attuned to me, right? But it's like, that's just because they're very similar in that way, so it just makes sense. But you know, that's the thing in any kind of relationship, is recognizing where you're similar and, you know, the pros and cons of that, right? Because it's like there are pros and cons to being so similar in those ways.
Totally. Because
then that puts you also in like, and that's why I recognize that in my relationships where it does feel so similar, right? Where I'm like, that's putting me in a silo, and that's also going to like, if I say I have something where I'm like, see that, whatever, they're gonna probably like agree with me on that, and it can easily feed that for you where it's like, well, yeah, see that person, you know, blah 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 blah, or it's like, oh yeah, well, see, it's fine because we both do that,
right?
Like,
right.
Oh, well, it's okay. It kind of for me, it has the experience of like where you put on like rose-colored glasses for each other.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh no, you're what? No, we don't see each other like that. Like it's like, no, I see you as this like, oh, for sure. Like, I get you, man. And so it can easily create that filter. So it's like being able to then, you know, make sure to broaden who you're talking to.
Right.
And instead of like going to that person where you're like, well, they get me. Like, that's great to feel that.
Yeah. And you know, and you can go to those. It's not that.
Yeah,
it's
no,
not
like,
to say,
go
like,
to
don't,
them.
It's not to say don't go to those people. It's just to say to recognize that.
No, right. Like, go to those people. And I usually go to those people and say, okay, and also like I'm like, look, let's talk about it in a way that like, yeah, for sure that makes sense to us, but like also let's talk about it in a way that maybe is like completely different, then how can we picture it differently? How can we have those different perspectives?
Yeah.
Because then that also puts us in those like, you know, more uncomfortable spaces of like, what else could be going on here? Because I don't want that experience, but I know that, so that's why I always make sure to talk about it in that way, because it's like there's so many different, you know, things with emotionality, attunement, and all of that. So it's, again, just being like mindful of these things and being open. I think honestly build secure relationships, you know, like
it does. Well, and you know, again, going back to the secure relationship, like when you have differences in how you attune or how you are aware or how you get curious or how you show care, like when you have these differences, is also to recognize that as well, and not just recognize it, because recognizing it is good. Like recognizing it is good, naming it is good. That's fantastic, but not having it be like I am this way, right? Like I have more of a tendency to be this way, but it doesn't mean that I can't learn or get to know or start to practice other ways of being that my partner really likes, or like really feels seen by. Like one of the things for me, because I do have my recall with my neurodivergence, my recall is just, it's just a lot lower than a lot of people. And one of the things that I do is that I take notes. And so like I can, like I have like a little note in my phone that's just like for Lee. That's just like a note in there. And I'm always like, not always like, but like often I'm thinking of like when things come up, I'm like, okay, well, what can I put in place for myself so that I remember things better or check in more often? Because like I'm cool with checking in like once a week or less. And Lee is like a daily check-in person, right? And that's just not my tendency. Like that's not as doesn't come as naturally to me to do that. And so I'm trying to think of ways, like currently, like in my current state of being, I trying to think of ways to be more aware of that, since it's not something that I just automatically think about, you know?
Well, the differences.
Yeah. So, but the point being is that not to shut off possibilities for yourself, like not to be like, oh, well, I am this way, so therefore my partner just needs to get over it or whatever. Like that's also not a great way to build secure relationships. But it's also like knowing your limits as well. Like again, using myself as an example, like it would be unreasonable of me to say and that to like promise Lee that I'm going to check in with them multiple times a day about different things. That would be setting myself up for failure. Like that would stress me out. And also it would create an unrealistic expectation that Lee now has of me that I feel like I need to adhere to, right? And that would just be me trying to do something to more like appease them, and not necessarily something that feels authentic and good for me to like offer as their partner, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's it's just one of, these different components that we've talked about with, building these secure kinds of relationships. Like all these different factors is being able to understand, like what is your natural kind of tendency, fully understanding like what's the others and like how you can work with that together. Because it's, again, like I am not having the expectation that like Eve's gonna be like exactly just like me and how I think about things and how I attune and all of that kind of stuff, right? Because I know that's different. I'm supposedly not neurodivergent, but like I think everyone's got a little something.
I'm like questionable.
Yeah, I'm like everyone's got a little something. But you know, like but even just aside from that, like, you know, just understanding that we're all different regardless, right? So, you know, just understanding, okay, yeah, like based off of like what my understanding is of, you know, what she's shared and everything. Okay, this is, yeah, I'm not going over here like she's gonna check in multiple times a day on this thing, you know, because it's like, no, it's not. And then it's like, yeah, I have other relationships where I'm like, they 100% do that because that's just how they work, right? And so it's like I have those things where I'm like, oh yeah, I had like, you know, these other relationships where I'm like getting check-ins or whatever it is. That like honestly surprised me sometimes where I'm like, dang, how did you remember that? I'm like, did I mention that to you? Shoot, okay. Where I'm like, thank you. You know, so it's like, it's nice and to like, yeah, be in that space of like, yeah, what is, you know, important here, or, you know, what's needed. And, you know, in that way, it's also being able to address like, hey, like this actually would be really important if we could work on this, you know, changing up some, right? And is that possible? Is that doable? Is all those kinds of things. But in that understanding of all these components, it's being able to then see like what you can actually work with, especially like, you know, saying in the same vein of like accessibility, like what's a way that I can reach for you that you're going to most likely respond to, right? Because I think people also, you know, respond differently to different kind of like, oh, I thought that was very clear. Okay. And it's like, so, you know, what can be done about like responsiveness in that way.
Yeah.
And then also engagement, like what has you feel like someone's actually engaging with you.
Yeah.
Right. So being able to talk about all those things so that you are creating those secure relationships based off of like what you actually need to feel secure in that dynamic.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last thing that I want to bring up is BIDS, which is something from the Gottmans, which like because a lot of what builds secure relationships are not necessarily like these big conversations about like secure attachment and communication style and all this stuff, like, and attunement. Like those are all important and those are, you know, certainly do have those conversations. And BIDS are the small things that happen every single day in a relationship that I also think that that's a very accessible way for a lot of people to start building your attunement in relationships too, is just to notice a BID is when someone in the relationship offers something that is connecting to the other person, and then the other person has the opportunity to meet them there or turn away. So a very small example is like you're walking along, you know, having a walk through the neighborhood, and one person says, "Oh my God, that's such a cute little bird," and the acceptance, that's a BID for connection, right? Like, hey, I'm noticing a thing and I'm expressing it to you. That's a BID for connection. And so someone meeting you there, your partner meeting you there, would sound something like, "Oh my God, you're right, that is such a cute little bird," or maybe saying something like, "Oh my God, I love how you just notice little things all the time. Like, I love how you love little," or even going a step further, being like, "Oh my God, I know you love birds," right? Something like that, right? Where a turn away would be like, being like, you know, rejecting that in some way, whether it's ignoring it, whether it's saying that it's stupid, whether it's like being on your phone and kind of like brushing it off, you know, like, where
like, hurry up, we're late.
yeah, exactly. Or like they're like, "Oh my God, what a cute little bird," and you're like, "Why are you so slow?" Like, you know, or something like that. Where it's just like not even acknowledging what you just said, or like being harsh, or even being harsh about that thing, like being like, "It's so stupid that you like birds so much. Like that's so dumb."
Oh my God.
Like, yeah, what a horrible thing to say. To someone who's so excited about a cute little bird.
God, that would be so rough.
That would be really rough. I'm so sorry if that happened to you, friend. But like those little tiny moments throughout the day are when you have the opportunity for connection, security, and also attunement, because if you're paying attention, then you can also like clock those things as like, "Oh, my partner really loves birds. Like, maybe I should keep that in my back pocket. Like, maybe I could buy them a cute bird thing, or like, whatever. I don't know, whatever. Or like,
yeah, it's something like, even like where if they're like, oh, I just like love the sounds of birds or something, something like that. And like maybe you see them later on, like at some other point in time, having like a hard day, and then you start like playing like bird songs, and you're like, hey, I thought this really helps you,
right?
whatever.
Like, you love the sound of birds, like
something like that,
something
right?
like that, exactly.
Or like where you're like, hey, I see you're having a tough day. Like, you want to go on like a quick walk? Maybe we can see like how many birds we can find or something like that, right? Like totally. That's you attuning in that way.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, one of the things, you can even create scenarios to have more bids as well, where like we go to the Fremont Market pretty often on Sundays. And so, there's a lot of opportunity for bids in that whole scenario. The first one being, hey, do you want to go to the market with me? That's a bid. The second one being like, what should I wear? Like, that's a bid. That's a bid for connection. Like, hey, what should I wear? Or like, what's the temperature outside? Or like, oh, we're gonna miss our cat or whatever. And then like the whole walk over there's so many opportunities for bids for connection, holding hands, noticing things together, having cute conversations, giving each other kisses on the cheek, whatever it is. And also like paying attention to what they're saying, like actually listening to what they're saying so that you can pick up on those things. And then, being at the market where it's like noticing what they like, noticing what really interests them, noticing what they really dislike and what really doesn't interest them. Like one of the things with Lee is that they're, very auditory, and so like auditory sensory, and so like a lot of people and a lot of sounds is overwhelming. And so like sometimes I'll be like, hey, like let's walk back through the like down by the water instead of like back through the market or something like that. Like that's that's my attempts for attunement.
That's my attempt.
That's my attempt for attunement. I'm just like, hey, like I'm like, I'm trying here.
That's my attempt. Oh my God, that's so funny. I imagine like someone do like a gymnastic.
That's my attempt.
Yeah, like
how'd I do? 1 to 10. Give me my rating.
Well.
They're not gonna do it.
No.
All right. All right. Anything else?
I rejected that bid. Did you see
You
how
did.
I did
You did reject that bid. You did 1,000%. I saw it. Like,
wow.
All right, cool. Note to self, not that joke. All right.
Oh boy.
Anything else you want to say about secure relationships? Having secure relationships?
No, I mean, I don't know. I'm like, I feel like yes, but then I feel like there's just already so much. Like, I feel like that's a good baseline.
That's a good, yeah.
It's a good baseline to kind of build from. And I think one other thing is to notice it, like, I mean, I think we maybe spoke to this a little bit earlier, but to really just call it out of like, notice any of the the shoulds that you have going on in your head around what a secure relationship should have or should look like, should feel like, based off of what others tell you or what you read about. It's all those things with relationships, like really making sure that it is actually working for you, and just getting curious around that, because it's like, I mean, going back to like what we were talking about, like if you're talking in these silos where it's like, oh yeah, well they should just be able to do this thing, or
yeah, or like if you can't make a long-term relationship work, then you're bad at relationships. So
right.
Like having that, like, oh well, if I ever want to have a secure relationship, like I should make it work, even if something is like not really working for you.
Right. Like just really understanding like what you are thinking is secure, because I think, and that's not to say like, be like lower your expectations like than your standards kind of thing, but recognize, maybe that there are some things that you have present in a relationship where it's like, oh yeah, I had that around this dynamic because of, growing up or, what I read about, whatever it is. And so it's like being like, but does that actually, is that actually necessary for me to feel secure here? Or is it kind of like, that's just maybe something that I'm holding on to? And that's not to say like you're not going to feel like disappointed about things, because especially if you've been carrying this since like childhood, like it's going to feel disappointing. And just because it feels disappointing doesn't necessarily mean that like you have quote unquote lowered your standards or expectations. It's more of like, oh yeah, you had this thing in you for a while, and like, yeah, that's sad, and it's like something to grieve, because maybe it's like, oh, I had that, but it actually doesn't work in this dynamic, and I'm okay with it not working in this dynamic. Like genuinely okay with it not working in this dynamic, not being like, oh, I should just whatever. It's like, again, just being like, no, that's genuinely okay for that not to be here.
Yeah.
And, what I do have here is this, and this, and this actually works for me in the way that they are, engaging, attuning, blah, 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 blah. Like this actually works, and we are, working on other ways to do it too. And so I can, release that and just like noticing maybe how many things that you have going on for you, like internally or like your expectations that are keeping you from feeling secure, that actually aren't even needed to have you feel secure, I think is a really good thing to investigate for yourself too, because like I talk about that with clients when I'm like, well, what would have you feel secure? And then, mention some things, and then I'm like, oh, well, what about that would bring security for you? Right. And they're like, I mean, it sounds good. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I agree, that does sound good. Is it like in a grand scheme realistic to have that all the time? No. Or like have it a lot of the time. Like it's like, no. So like, let's talk about that, right? And so really just seeing where maybe you can release some of those things that are keeping you back from like seeing that maybe you are in a secure relationship, but it's like kind of the shades. Yeah, like where you're like, filters. Oh, whoops, I was actually in it, but I, whatever it is. Or to be able to talk to your partner about that too. If they're like saying, this is what I need to feel secure, and you're like, what is that for you? To be able to talk about that together, because then it's like, oh yeah, and it is. I mean, I think that's anytime like disappointment comes into play. I think people think, oh, that means it's bad, but it's more of like, oh, you can feel disappointed about something, and it's like, oh, well, that was a bit of a, maybe a childhood dream or something of that nature about like your fantasy relationship. And so it's like, oh yeah, that's a bit sad.
Like we should always get along, or they should always be happy for me. Or
things that either like are dehumanizing your partner.
Right, exactly. It's just like you're never always going to get along with people. People are never always going to be happy with you. People who love you and care about you to pieces are going to disagree with you and be unhappy with you sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we should definitely talk about like disappointment in relationships and how that's like,
I think that we should listen to these past 2 episodes and like too. Literally like every single bullet point can be its literal, it can be its own friggin' series.
Yeah. I think it's, there is a lot, I think disappointment just comes with, maturity in relationships. I mean, there are some things where I'm like, yeah, if you feel disappointed about that and it's because it's actually genuine for you, well, then it's a different story. But being able to be with like disappointment while also being with like, but yeah, this actually works still. So it's the multitudes that are humans.
It's true, and it's totally normal to feel contradictory things.
Yeah, I think that's just one of the other things, just to notice like those kinds of pieces that could be at play.
Totally. All right, well, my water is gone and my throat is hurty, so I have to be done now.
Nope, this has now become a solo cast. Everyone sit down.
All right, yeah, you can keep going. I gotta go get some more water. Oh my god.
No.
All right, well,
thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Make sure that you like and subscribe. It really does help our podcast and our YouTube channel if you engage with this video and you, again, engage, like, subscribe, put a comment down below about what you got out of this episode. You can also email at us at queerloverelationships@gmail.com. You can look at our website for how to work with us if that's what you want to do. And we love you so, so much.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Okay, love you. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Queer Love Podcast. We would love to hear from you. Drop us a line on TikTok, Instagram, or Twitter at Queer Love Relationships, or email us at queerloverelationships@gmail.com. If you are interested in working with us, follow the Linktree link in the show notes. See if our offers resonate with you. And if they do, sign up with us or book a discovery session. We are so grateful that you're here, listening, learning, and growing with us. Until next time, keep loving.